Although David Barksdale founded Black Disciples in 1960 and was the leader, however, he had to break barriers to form an alliance with black gangsters such as Larry Hoover in order to reduce the non-stop wars in Chicago's African-American communities.
David Barksdale, known as David Barksdale, was born May 24, 1947, in Salis, Mississippi. Barksdale was a son of Virginia and Charlie Barksdale. He grew up with 13 other siblings in his family. He was 10 of 13 children in his family. The Barksdales soon moved to Chicago, Illinois in 1957. Within 3 years of moving to Chicago, Illinois, Barksdale became a notorious gang leader.
In the year 1961, 14-year-old David Barksdale took over leadership of the Devil's Disciples, and he directly oversaw the Inglewood branch of the Disciples.
By 1972, Barksdale gang absorbed several others and became known as the Black Disciple Nation. Tensions grew between the Black Disciples and other gangs such as the Blackstone Rangers. In 1968, the leader of the Blackstone Rangers, Eugene Hairston, ordered a hit on Barksdale, which resulted in Barksdale being shot 7 times while sitting in his car in May of that year. In Hyde Park and Kenwood, wealthier white greaser youths were bullying several black youths. Hyde Park had always enforced restrictive racial convenience in the earlier times, but in the late 40s it was deemed unconstitutional. Therefore, black families began to move into the older northern section of the Hyde Park neighborhood. By the later 50s, blacks were moving into this area in southern Kenwood at a higher rate as this area became more affordable. In Inglewood, black families began moving in at a very high rate in this neighborhood, causing many Italian families and Italian greasers resentment, and soon bullying ensued. There were also white and black gangs from outside of Inglewood, Hyde Park, and Kenwood that invaded and bullied these youths.
Some of the bullied youth from Kenwood, Hyde Park, and Inglewood got together as friends and decided to create a club that would fight against all the enemies they had. These boys were only 11 and 13 years old in age, and all sat down to figure out the name of the new organization. They decided to flip through the Holy Bible to get ideas. Then it dawned on them to use the name Disciple in their name. The boys then added the prefix Devils to give the name an intimidating edge to it. After that was decided, the Disciples were simultaneously at 49th in Dorchester and Kenwood and 53rd in Kenbark and Hyde Park, and scattered throughout Inglewood between 56th Street and 67th Street.
By 1961, the Devil Disciples were the most powerful gang in Inglewood, and the Italy Greaser gangs were fighting that losing war against the Disciples. In 1961, 14-year-old David Barksdale took over leadership of the Devil Disciples, and he directly oversaw the Inglewood branch of the Disciples. Barksdale appointed Mingo as president of Disciples in Hyde Park and Kenwood that became known as East Side Disciples. Barksdale set to work absorbing several other small gangs on the south side, turning them into Disciple gangs. These gangs would still retain their original name, but all groups would all have the last name Disciple. All other branches of Disciple outside of Inglewood had their own president.
David Barksdale used his power for some good, as can be seen. The Disciples was also tied to civil rights group and fought against civil rights injustice. In the summer of 1966, Disciples even tried a peace treaty with the Rangers. This didn't last, but at least there was a large attempt.
The Black Disciples were then better known as the Devil Disciples. By 1966, the Disciples had merged with several other gangs and had grown considerably more powerful in opposition to their chief rival, the Blackstone Rangers, a much larger organization. Barksdale led the Disciples in wanton violence against the Rangers and other organizations like the smaller black gangsters, and sometimes against people who were not affiliated with Chicago gangs or the gang life, in order to generate respect and fear.
The notorious GD gang, short for Gangster Disciples, used the 6-point star as its primary method of identification in honor and remembrance of David Barksdale, the man who founded the gang. The 6-point star that represents the Gangster Disciples mirrors the Star of David. Its 6 points represents the vouchers of love, life, loyalty, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding.
Many people may be surprised to know that many of the BD members feel that if Barksdale, who died at age 27 in 1974, were still alive today, the extreme violence which has plagued Chicago streets since the 1980s would not have existed today. Original BD members, headed by co-founder Dirk E. Clean and Don Dirk, are increasing their efforts to make an aspect of King Dave's vision that may not be apparent to the public become a reality: more peaceful neighborhoods across Chicago.